a little bit of Kings talk, a quick respite from the NFL, a little bit of Kings talk as we discussed yesterday, and I was very excited for Jae Crowder. No clue if he will actually be with the team. It's been really tough for him to really get time for his last two spots. Didn't get a lot of time in, Phoenix, and then hasn't gotten a lot of time in Milwaukee, and now he's trying to find his way somewhere. I think it's always a little bit worrisome when if everyone isn't knocking down the door for this guy, how much do we think he's going to help? But I think personally, guys, for a team based on last year with JaVale McGee, what he had to say on these here airwaves, I think from an off-course perspective, to get a DeMar DeRozan who is going to bring that veteran mentality of wanting to win and things like that, and then to bring in somebody like a Jae Crowder, just going to bring a little bit more chippiness. Can't get my Markieff Morris or whichever one of the Morris twins, Marcus Morris, they're gone. So I'll take Jae Crowder just to add to the dogness, Chris. But on top of Jae Crowder, there are some other free agents that you have that are still available for all teams, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the Jae Crowder look is at least in the right direction. Again, I said it yesterday. I mean, I think it would have been a lot nicer of a piece and a lot more exciting of a piece if it would have been from a couple years ago, but he's still a functional NBA player. It's just not somebody that I would think, if we're talking about the Kings playoff rotation, he's somebody who's on the fringes. And so that's where it's just, I think he's kind of past his days of being a high level 20 plus minute per game playoff guy. I think in the regular season, you could probably still get away with playing him as much as you want because of the things you listed. I mean, he's incredibly physical. He's a dog. He definitely is somebody who's going to bring a certain level of edge and physicality to this team, which we know they desperately need. And you and I have both desperately wanted them to get a little bit of some Jae Crowder in them. And so I think it would be a good addition in that sense. But I think there are some better players out there that the Kings could potentially add. Again, Jay's fine. And if he hits his threes, honestly, that's the thing that keeps him on the floor. But if he's not, then it's really tough to find minutes for him. And that's just kind of the reality of the NBA in general today anyway. But some names that stuck out to me amongst the remaining free agents, actually, funny enough, Cedi Osman signed overseas last week. And so that's a name that's now off the board that a lot of people were really excited about.
What do you think happened there real quick? Because
I would
that was the name.
Not the money. Yeah, I would guess that he probably gets more money and a bigger role overseas. And, I think he probably was sick and tired of waiting around for a call. I think the Lakers kicked the tires on him and he told them that he was going overseas. So I think that's kind of how that situation ended up panning out. I would, again, just assume that it was, he's not going to sit around and wait for a call when, there's other teams out there that are going to offer him money and give him a really big role that he won't have here in the NBA. But some names that stick out to me still for remaining free agents, Juan Toscano-Anderson still sitting out there. JTA, again, it's not like he's going to be a super impact player, but at least we know Mike Brown knows him, trusts him. We know exactly what he is. I don't think there's any illusion that JTA is going to come in here and, be a high-level scorer or anything. I think he knows exactly who he is and what he fits. And I think Mike Brown obviously has a good idea of how he wants to utilize him. Be interesting to see if JTA could get a bigger role, actually be here for a training camp and maybe see if he could have an impact. Doug McDermott's a name that I just continue to shout out more so because of his off-the-floor relationship with Sabonis and Kevin Huerter. Landry Shamet's a name that excites me. I like him as a 3-and-D guy. Was really prominent early in his career as a 3-and-D player, but kind of hasn't been able to find any sort of comfort in a home since really his early Clipper days. And then Robert Covington, Jae Crowder and Robert Covington kind of in the same basket of those guys would have been a lot better a couple of years ago, but I do think they bring a veteran edge, some defense, and if they can knock down their shot at a pretty good rate, I mean, I think those guys can really make a big impact. And, we still are really just looking at the wing positions, and I think those are really the biggest impact players that are still out there.
A name that is interesting to me, Chris, and look, maybe I'm being prisoner of the game, but a name that obviously if you're on this list, teams haven't been, busting the door down, but he's a younger guy. He played well when the Kings almost blew it against the Pistons. I would take a look at Isaiah Livers. He's 6'6", power forward, small forward type position. He's out of Michigan. He shoots at 35.8% from 3-point range. He hit a couple against the Kings. He's 26 years old. Again, none of these guys are necessarily going to set the world on fire, but just looking at the certain positions and what you've seen, I think he's a name that would be, if all the other names are guys that we've seen that movie before, I do think that, getting drafted in the 2021 draft, I mean, he hasn't had a lot of time, and maybe there's a reason for that, because if you can't get time on the Pistons, I guess that's not a great look, but that's somebody that would interest me as well.
Yeah, I think he's a decent player. I mean, there's still some names out there. JaVale is still floating around.
Man.
I kind of feel like the Kings,
I'm surprised JaVale is
somewhere, right? Like somewhere, I'm surprised has even a team like the Lakers or even Philadelphia. They had a ton of guys. Boban's still available. There's a couple different guys out there. Bismack Biyombo is a name. Can I interest you in a Thanasis? Still doesn't have a contract. He's maybe okay.
Wait,
I'm right there.
So the Bucks finally said enough?
I believe so. I mean, the list that I saw still has Thanasis as a free agent.
They finally said enough.
Maybe
enough.
They're saying, man, you gotta earn your keep nowadays. We can't just hold the roster spot open for you when we could realistically fill that with an impact player.
Especially when their roster is kind of brutal, right? They literally can't afford to. Can I ask you a question? And I'm not trying to throw a stray at Boban, but is he literally the example of a pretty decent athlete just waking up one day and being big as hell? I mean, he's 7'4", 7'10".
Always big as hell.
No, but like when people say I'd be in the NBA if I was 7'4", are they talking about Boban?
Sure.
Because I mean, he's just not.
Yeah,
he's just big.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's probably worse examples. Like Boban's actually crazy fit, like and mobile for a guy as big. Like, I mean, we've seen Simbulars. Like, I think it's more of the And I mean, Boban's also not really done anything in the NBA, even slightly significant.
But I'm just saying he hung around. Yeah, big,
definitely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not because of his skill, though. I mean, you look at some of his like per 36 and plus minus numbers, you probably be really impressed. But I mean, he's a huge body. I mean, you see his hands in the Goldfish commercial. He's just a massive human. And it's actually pretty surprising that he hasn't been able to find any sort of NBA footing. Cause like I said, I mean, he doesn't move well at all. He is very plodding and moves like a giant, but he's like in really good shape and is really, really strong and actually is fairly skilled. And, he's killed the Kings on a couple of occasions relatively. I'm actually really surprised that he's nobody like a Pistons or somebody, a really, really bad team. Why would you not just sign a Boban, let him cook and relatively? I mean, I think just give him minutes and, how many Boban jerseys are going to get sold? A ton. Like to me, it just makes sense to add him to your roster if you don't actually have a plan of what exactly you're trying to do with your team. Charlotte Hornets, sign him up.
Yeah. It doesn't. To me, he's just a person. I think he's the most recent example, but I think to your point, even to just get to the, there's probably worse examples who who haven't even hung around this long, but they're just as big. Coming up next, DeMar DeRozan predicts how far the Kings can go in this season's playoffs. Stiles Watkins, Sactown Sports.
Our first